Раз. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Ladies and gentlemen, please, the next session is gonna start in 5-10 minutes. Please take your seats. Thank you.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 5.
Дорогие дамы и господа, хотел бы попросить вас занять свои места. В течение 50 минут начнется следующая сессия. Dear ladies and gentlemen, I would like to kindly ask you to take your seats. In the next 5 or 10 minutes starts the next session. Thank you very much.
راس 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 بربر
Hi, good morning, everybody. Would you please, anyone would like to sit, to have your seat, please, so we can start. Great. So, good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining us in today's panel, Urban Planning and Development, Modernizing Infrastructure for Sustainable and Comfortable Growth. What we'll do this morning, I will just lay down the global framework. After that, we'll start detailed discussion. I'll introduce the speakers, and we'll start detailed discussion about specific subjects. Let me start when it comes to urban development and construction with most probably the most important issue, which is the population and economic growth. As we know, by 2050, two-thirds of the population globally will be residing in cities. These cities will be home to more than 90% of economic development. Now, one point to highlight that this distribution is unequal. Most of this growth in terms of population and economy is centralized around Asia and Africa. Uzbekistan, with 37.6 million population, makes it the most populous country in Central Asia. But we need to stop and start thinking, what does it really mean? All of this growth, what type of pressure would put on infrastructure, urban development, social inclusion? What type of solution in our hand as urban planner and city builders? This is only one trend among others like digitization, sustainability and resilience, ensuring that infrastructure resilience respond to movement of population, new needs of citizens, and also in order to create environmentally sustainable, energy efficient communities. Leading global cities have acknowledged major urban challenges. How to ensure the life quality standards responding to the new citizens' needs. How to ensure the governance creating aligned stakeholder responsibilities in order to deliver on the promised infrastructure expansions. And how we ensure the resilience of infrastructure to respond to changing phasing of the development and changing needs of the development. Of course, this is part of a greater framework of challenges. But the key development principles have been identified to address these challenges, like the inclusivity, the city of proximity. Some people, they call it the 15-minute city, in order to ensure that all the needs are in the close proximity of the citizens, so it reduces the dependency on the mobility. It makes sure that the access to these services are equal to everybody, and also to ensure the experience of the consumers have been maintained. other development solutions like the compact city, innovation, infrastructure, sustainability. Today we will dive deeper in some of these solutions, like how we are creating urban development that can enhance the life quality of the residents. What are the mobility solutions to ensure green mobility? How can the design innovation ensure energy efficient buildings and so on? I will not go through all of these points. The main message here that infrastructure and urban development thought about in isolation of a more complex framework, bringing all of these aspects, will not really offer a critical solution. We need to address any of these aspects in a more comprehensive framework in order to deliver on energy efficient and sustainable real estate development. Now, to help me unpack all of these questions and to try to create some of the solution, I'm happy to introduce our speakers today. From my left, Hakan Acha from Crossworks, Sasha Barnex from Alstom, Manuela Gatto from Zaha Hadid Architects, Izzet Gourmet from Koch Construction, Varun Dev from Synergy Consulting, and Maxime Popov from Anhor Evolution. Let me start with you, maybe Hakan. What are the main urban planning principles have been integrated, especially that you worked on the new Tashkent city, and the impact of these principles, not only to deliver on all these large-scale mixed-use development, but we know such development are long-term. How we can ensure short-term delivery while maintaining a long-term consistency when it comes to these developments?
Thanks, Hussam. So to answer your question, I'm going to run through a few slides to introduce everyone to the new Tashkent project. I'm the managing director and founder of Crossworks. During a competition in the summer of 2023, we were very fortunate and were awarded the project to design the new city. So I think through these slides, I can answer some of your questions. So really one of our main objectives was to create a benchmark for Central Asia. It wasn't just to design any urban design project, it was really to set the benchmark for how cities should be designed, planned and implemented in the future. As we all know, the existing city of Tashkent is the largest city in all of Central Asia. It has 3 million people as of this year, just over 3 million, and the new city proposes an additional 2.5 million over the next century. Here we have some key figures, some of which may answer some of Hussam's questions. The site is 25,000 hectares, of which we have about 25%, just over 25% of open space, and running at a density of around 100 people per hectare. In terms of the GFA, we're looking at a gross floor area of 166 million square meters of development, of which about 75 million is residential floor space. We also came up with a phasing strategy for the project, going from District 1 in the north, which is to the right of this image, all the way down to the south of the project, down to the left of the image that you can see here. Some of the key objectives were to respond to nature. There's the Chirchik River that runs through the east side of the existing city. On this image you can see along the top. And there's the Karosu River to the east. So one of the main strategies here was, to create a sustainable city and something that had open space for all of the citizens and visitors, was to connect the Karosu and the Chirchik River with these sequence of valleys and canals from east to west, utilizing the slope of the site and gravity to effectively create let's say, the Amsterdam or the Copenhagen of Central Asia. We also integrated with the transport and utilities infrastructure of the existing city and the new twin city. And we also calculated community, commercial and cultural facilities that would be required to make this, a truly walkable city, as Hussam was talking about earlier. Then looking at District 1, this is the first phase of the development. If you're fortunate enough to go to the site, you'll see that it's actually under construction as we speak. It was a 2-year master plan from vision to concept to detailed master plan, and towards the end of the detailed master plan, the client already started to break ground and commence construction. So this area of 6,000 hectares has a population something in the region of 300,000 to 400,000, and also a development area of around 30 million square meters. So I'll just run through these slides, as I know I'm on a stop clock, and I want to touch on a few different subjects. So having completed the master plan of the site, which involved obviously a team of 15 consultants that were working under us, including engineers, landscape designers, cost consultants, economic forecasters, a vast team. It wasn't just Crossworks. Under us we had some of the best specialists in the world helping us come up with a sustainable infrastructure for the growth of this city. As well as designing the master plan, we also produce a digital twin for the scheme, which is, I would say, really a benchmark for city planning globally, where it shows the president and the directorate of New Tashkent's innate need to share the details of the project with the public, which is a fantastic level of transparency, actually, to get stakeholder and community involvement on the project, which is really unheard of in some parts. Here we can see the mass transit system. And I'll also touch on the urban block plan here, which showcases all of the urban blocks, the development land, the archaeological sites, the preservation of some of the existing settlements as well, which is also a notable point. This isn't a tabula rasa. It is actually a site that already has existing settlements and existing archaeological sites that are being preserved. And then we'll very quickly touch on the guidelines as well, because again, I'm aware I'm on a short time frame here, so I'll just skip through a few. So as the slides are moving forward, I'll start to talk a little bit about the visuals and the guidelines. We were tasked with also producing architectural guidelines for the city. The client was, when I say the client, the directorate of New Tashkent and the government were very keen that the master plan in the future would be developed by thousands of future generations of architects, and that there should be some kind of a rule book as to how these designs of buildings should be described, prescribed, but without restriction. I think that's the key thing. So 95% of the building stock would subscribe to these architectural guidelines that we produced, but we left space for about 5% of cultural buildings and you know, stadia, sports facilities and entertainment facilities that could be designed outside of our guidelines. And we have friends from Zaha Hadid Architects here, for example, who have designed the Alisher Navoy Museum, which Manuela will talk about later. That's one of those buildings that does not prescribe necessarily to the guidelines, but showcases how real innovation can provide that spark to the city. So these are some of the renders that we produced during those guidelines to really set the scene for how the city could look and how it could be shaped. Again, going back to Hussam's original point, to make this a really truly walkable city, but also one that doesn't have traffic congestion, that actually has the relevant and necessary infrastructure for 2.5 million people. And that's really the fine balance that we had to reach, creating a walkable human city of human scale that also has arterial roads and infrastructure that has the capacity to smoothly and efficiently allow people to get to their workplaces and ensure that there's no congestion across the city. These are some of the city squares and plazas. And then lastly, I'm just going to touch on what I mentioned earlier, the digital twin. So this is a portal that we built with our technology team at Crossworks that sits alongside our design team, where we showcase all of the data, the maps, the GIS, the 3D visualizations, the VR immersive experiences, all inside a portal online. I think the days of producing an A4 report that sits on a shelf are gone, frankly, and we need to all be working in a digital interface that is truly accessible by all stakeholders and even the community in some cases. So here you can see all of the data, the geometry, and even the immersive experiences we designed to walk through these city spaces so that even investors could come and walk through the streets that they may well invest in the future. So this, I think, also was a bit of an innovation for city planning that really, it's quite rare to see it at this scale, I must say. This is one of the visual walkthroughs of one of the areas called Silk City, which we were asked to design. And then I'll just finalize on the urban design guidelines here, just for a few more slides. And these urban design guidelines really were set out to ensure that future generations of designers and architects ensure that when they come up with their proposals, that it's in line with the population targets and the infrastructure targets that have been set. On a very simple basis, if our master plan suggests that there should be 10,000 square meters of development on a plot, our population targets and infrastructure has been designed to accommodate for that. If you then put 100,000 square meters on that plot, obviously the infrastructure is no longer sufficient and the master plan fails. So this is why it was very important for us to set out a number of rules and codes that could be prescribed to going forward into the future. And I think there I will hand over, if I'm in time with my with my 6 minutes.
Well, a few minutes extra, but that's fine.
A few minutes extra left?
Yeah, no.
Oh,
You're good
okay.
with this. But thanks for the comprehensive presentation. A few points just to highlight. There are a lot of things to take out with us. But sometimes we underestimate the complexity of planning a new urban development. It's not only the planning, it has a lot multi-layered approach in terms of infrastructure, all the way to the mixed-use development and the development program. And the other thing to highlight that this will be always working document, because with such large-scale mixed-use development, we are talking about 10 plus years. So that's always was going to be revived and updated. I like the fact that you have the digital tools in order to create the transparency you are talking about it. But today more and more we are saying foreign direct investment more encouraged to participate when they see that level of transparency. That will allow us also to create participatory framework with the citizens themselves, so we can adjust any new movement or changes as we progress. The other point is the guidelines. Creating again consistent level across the overall master development without really limiting the creativity or the individuality of some of the blocks or the building. That's something very critical. How you balance between being prescriptive versus descriptive, and how you also balancing between the current delivery versus the longevity of resilience or flexibility of the master plan. And that I think that came across very clear.
Fantastic. So, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. And the other fact is the mobility. Thanks for addressing the mobility, at least in this early stage, because I was chatting with Sasha before we start, and we know from other projects that sometimes mobility are not addressed quite in advance, and if it's addressed, not addressed completely, which then makes any solutions afterwards far more expensive, very limited, and it doesn't really give us the anticipated impact at least. So Sasha, the question to you, what mobility paradigm and innovation we are implementing today to ensure not only green mobility, but also an equal access to all the mobility, and then also avoiding the inherited congestions problem?
Thank you. Yes, we heard the word congestion. In reality, a society like a new city cannot survive without mobility. In fact, being able to move around as a human being is a basic need. If we need, and by the way, our ancestors had the very same basic need that we do have today. To be able to eat, we need to be able to go and move to get food, or maybe the food has to move to your doorstep. to be able to trade and exchange with each other, whether they are goods or ideas, then we need to be able also to move and meet, to be able to discover other places than the one we live in, maybe to see if there is a better place to live, then we need also to be able to move. The funny thing is that mobility has become so easy these days. We move around so easily without even thinking about it that we often take it as granted. And that's why some issues pop up on new city development or existing city where population is growing massively and quickly, is then there is a point where the mobility throttles and suddenly mobility becomes difficult. And that's a time where the impact is massive for the life of people, economic development in general, and simply the life of such society or such city. So if you look at modern cities, and now more and more modern cities have realized about the importance of planning mobility in advance, they really look at three themes, three items. Number one, mobility has to be green. Today, transportation is responsible for 20% of the climate change phenomena. So 20% is due to the fact that we move around, or we move goods around. So it's a significant portion of the climate change problem, and there is more and more a push to move around without carbon footprint, or with limiting the carbon footprint. So one of the key numbers is how much gram CO2 per passenger kilometer or per ton kilometer we can achieve. So that's where the technology and the planning is going in that direction, green mobility. Then the second item is smart mobility. We heard about digitalization, very impressive 3D immersive picture about a city. Digital twin is also being developed in the mobility sector. More and more cities represent their mobility system in a digital world as a digital twin in order to be able to test, to stress test this system in all type of particular situation that may happen in a city. A special event, a football game, suddenly you will have 200,000 supporters in maybe one specific place. Maybe there will be an accident at one place where suddenly a district and some roads will be shut down. And the digital twin is able to represent and how the system will operate, will react, maybe will not be able to react, and that gives the city operator the ability to implement changes in the real world in order to front this reality when it happens. The third item, which is important for mobility, is mobility has to be developed for everybody. It cannot be mobility only for a few people. The mobility has to be thought to respond to the needs of young kids, of aged people, handicapped people, young people who want to have access to Wi-Fi and be entertained, people who want to have some quiet place to be able to work during their mobility, etc. So the mobility has to be green, has to be smart, has to be for all. What we see today is modern mobility systems are really moving away from the use of cars. You saw actually very little cars on these pictures because you know, when you reach a certain amount of people, 1-2 million people, if each one is driving an individual car, 2 million cars is totally unsustainable. You need an enormous amount of roads to be able to have 2 million cars running around. And this is why today you see most cities moving away from roads and cars towards using railway as a backbone, metro, tramway, for mass transport, and then have solution for last mile, first mile mobility, very agile type of mobility solutions to be able to move people or goods between their place of work, their place of living, to the backbone of transportation within the city. So this is the trend that we now see moving. It responds basically to those three needs because it will allow for green technology. A railway is today the greenest mobility way of moving, factor 10 to 100 lower carbon footprint than cars or planes. And it's easily implementable and digitalizable. A digital twin, the technology exists for a long time. By the way, trains have been electric for 100 years. We start to see electric cars today, but trains have been electric for a long time, so they have been green for a long time. We even have hydrogen trains now running commercially in Europe. And also it responds to that need that mobility can be for all. You know, a railway system can allow quiet. You can actually do a lot of things while you're moving around in the sector. You're not the one driving. Railway can be fully automated. We see more and more driverless metro system or tramway system nowadays. So yeah, that's the trend basically that we see for mobility, especially within cities that grow very rapidly.
Great, thanks, Sasha. I have a follow-up question, but before that, I wanted to highlight a couple of very interesting points. As you said, the most important thing is the green mobility, smart mobility, and multimodal systems. I will not start complaining because yesterday it took me more than 1 hour to arrive here. We'll talk about it later. However, it's interesting in some of the capitals now they are moving from as a framework or as a perception of mobility, moving away from mobility system association to the trip convenience, in a sense that I need to go from point A to point B, tell me what systems I need to use. Not only the impact of greenery, but also start changing our perception of ownership of cars, dependency on some of the systems. Are you seeing some of these shifts happening?
Yes. Some cities. If you think Uber, I mean, some of you must have taken an Uber in their life. It's relatively simple. You say where you want to go, where you are. You push the button, and you don't think anymore. An Uber comes, you know exactly the time at which it arrives, you know the time at which it will arrive, you can do something else. You don't have to worry about mobility. The issue is that cars is not the most sustainable way of moving, and as I said, in a 2 million city, it becomes congested very fast. Today, some cities apply the same principle of Uber to their multimodal system. So today, there are now applications where you just say exactly the same. I want to go from A to B. And from that point, you know your carbon footprint that will be there. You know the time at which you start, at which you finish. You know which train, which station, where to go, etc. You don't have to think. Even the last mile, first mile mobility can be booked in advance so that it's available when you arrive at the station. So this is definitely the trend that we see, merging this multimodal way of moving around with a strong use of big data to somehow manage that optimally.
Great, yeah, definitely it's inspiring to see how Uber become part of the underground, because it's part of the journey. London Underground become part of the train or the metro, integrate even to your flight and arrival to the airport.
Exactly.
And that also highlights the importance of utilizing these digital tools and technologies in our planning. And with that, I move to Manuel to tell us about what innovative tools, technologies, AI can be integrated at the early stage of the design in order to ensure that design is energy efficient, sustainable, and so on, and also to meet the client criteria.
Thank you. I think I need my slides up.
Can we get the slides? Especially I'm talking about digitization, I mean.
Yeah, now you're getting there. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Hussam. Well, first, a very brief introduction of who we are. We were founded by Dame Zaha Hadid 45 years ago, And so we were going for a very long time, and I think we can safely say we're one of the trailblazing architecture firms in the world at the moment. Our line of business are covering possibly every typologies in terms of architecture, but also in terms of interior design, product design. And I wanted to talk a little bit about our teams and how we're structured inside and how this affects or has a positive effect on our design, our work. We have several, can you hear me? Okay. Several research and development teams within our company. ZHA Code, which deals mostly with digital fabrication. We have a team exclusively working on AI, sustainability and environment. We have our own team, and VR and metaverse as well. So Hakan has already spoken extensively about digital twins, so I'm not gonna dwell on it. I just wanted to speak about our internal lines of research and how these have a positive impact onto our way of designing innovative master plans. So of course, the digital twin, as we know, it's very important for planning purposes, but also it's very important, we believe, for heritage conservation purposes. One, especially when it's coupled with rapid prototyping and design for manufacture and assembly, because you have the digital twin, which is sort of your digital virtual counterpart of your project, whether it's a master plan, whether it's an architectural project. And then from the data gathered in the digital twin, you can effectively have a physical output in the forms of, let's say, if you have a digital twin of a heritage, you can 3D print or mill digitally components that can be replaced in terms of conservation. But when you're talking about, for instance, rapid construction of development of cities, you can work with effectively off-site manufacturing entire parts of buildings. And I'm not talking about repetitive kind of Soviet-style building. I'm talking about buildings that have a constant variation, and because they have a digital life, you don't need to standardize the look of these parts of buildings. They can be all different, and they can be 3D printed or in any way manufactured off-site, taken to site and installed very quickly. Previously, metaverse was mentioned. We have our own metaverse, for instance, which we use for hosting events and for even doing product launches of our work or other people's work. In the context of smart city, the virtual life, again, based on the digital twin, the metaverse could be an incredible tool and resource for holding virtual town halls, for instance, community engagement, fundraising was mentioned, and of course, it's great, and investors' engagement, so very early stage availability of a metaverse displaying the project would really encourage the engagement of investors, and at a later stage you can have a virtual sales showroom. Gamification is something we work on a lot. We have an ongoing collaboration with Epic Games. Epic Games are the makers of Fortnite, and we strongly believe gamification is an excellent way to engage, for instance, with youth. We were talking earlier about how young the population of Uzbekistan is and how important it is that they are involved and engaged in the development of their cities. And of course, on a gaming level, it would be the best way for them to be, but also there is an opportunity for knowledge transfer between the planners and the youth via, of course, working with the universities and engaging them directly in the planning systems. So we have a game, for instance, that we designed for Reimagine London, it's called. It's a platform where people can play with London, change parts of London. You know, there are many opportunities there, I think, in terms of city planning. AI Design Assist is something I wanted to talk about a little bit more in detail. There are clear benefits in implementing this, which I'm gonna maybe go a little bit more in detail now here. Not only you can parameterize your city planning by inserting very clear parameters, whether this is circulation, whether it's GFA and so on, and then you can create scenarios very quickly by altering these parameters. And you can have an output of factors that you can physically measure in terms of assessing the efficiency and the success of the master plan. So just an example here, you can score these factors and really kind of rate each scenario and be able to assess, depending on the way you give to each data, which one is the most successful design scheme. The tool sets of the master plan tool sets that we have are described here. Of course, you can insert the tool sets that are most suitable to the specific master plan. Different clients and different master plans have different requirements. The standard ones are the usual ones: traffic, the GFA, the green ratio, and so on. You can fine-tune also parameters linked, of course, to sustainability, cast shadows, solar gain, and the list is potentially endless. And this is an example of our design assist. So we have our own AI model, which we trained with our own projects. It's based on a stable diffusion standard AI model, which we trained via LoRa, which is the low-ranking. It's a way to. Well, we had to basically tag our projects, describe our project, transfer them to the model. The model has learned from them, and in the video there you see that you can kind of weigh the let's say go from a way of 0 where the stable diffusion model is its standard at its standard. So it's basically described, let's say, an old town type of density, up to 100 where the AI model draws at the maximum from our own project. So the 100 is like the Zahat city. So we don't want something like this. Of course, we want something in between. Number of recent master plans we've done. We've been working on master plans for about 30 years. Although we were born as architects, but we have developed master plans over many years. They go from, let's say, around a few hectares all the way to several hundreds of square kilometers. And I just wanted to close with an example of one that we're building in China, which we think is particularly successful. It's a 15-minute city, so a close proximity city. It's located in a beautiful area of Chengdu at the cross of 2 metro lines. And we designed it in such a way that you can only access this with the metro lines. There's a car park on the basement, but then the entire city is pedestrianized. It's called Unico City because the idea is that it's going to be open to, or is open to startups, and it's got the opportunity for startups who have their own office areas or workshops there, living there as well in an environment which is completely pedestrianized. We started this project in 2019, and it's nearly completed now. So I'm just going to show a couple of pictures of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Manuel. A couple of points, quite interesting work, and I think in principle utilizing AI to move the design process from a linear process to more iterative, because that's for people working on development and city expansions. That's one of our challenges usually, because if you want to try to test different economic programs responding to different asset class distribution or different heights, different social structure, used to take a lot of time. Now it seems with the AI integration, and also it's the fact that you are making it more participatory framework where you engage the community. Having worked in London, I can tell you maybe this will be the only opportunity to change London, because it takes a lot of permitting process to do that. Exactly. But the fact that with the gaming, engaging individuals to be able to voice their interest or at least their preferences, that seems to be very streamlined, and I'm sure we'll get a lot of insight going forward.
Yes, just maybe quickly. Parametric planning has been around for a while. Of course, application of building information models have been around for a while. But I think when you integrate AI, you get this breadth of not only the speed, but the accuracy and the real, let's say, I don't know how to explain. You don't have to spend days modeling a model for then the outcome and the parameters to be available. You can very quickly. So let's say all the kind of like groundwork is done before in the training of the model. Once you have the model, you can fine tune the model, and your answers are being available, will be available to you much quicker. So it's a sort of like an early stage investment that then pays off in the longer term, definitely.
Especially for large-scale mixed-use development, where we know that there are a lot of heat changes across the life cycle, and also it need to respond to a city expansion. So that level of flexibility is always wanted. Now we have maybe more quick and smart solution to address that. We move now maybe to an industry being accused that the least innovative, which is the construction. I think ISAT will have some answers to that, but ISAT, with all of this large-scale mixed-use development, usually with the planning and so on, we come across the construction with a very short time, and that's where developer looking to finish on time, because again, that's part of the economic model. How we moved away from conventional, let's say, process in terms of taking the approvals, the permits, going through the entire process to try to implement innovation in our construction that would guarantee high speed while maintaining the quality of this construction.
Thank you very much. You probably gave a very brief summary of what I was initially going to say, but let me speak my... I have several texts which briefly describe standard project development and accelerated project development. I will use some terminology which might be boring, but further on I will include a video which might be also very interesting for the audience. It's a project we have started, built, developed, and delivered in a record low of 72 days. So, well, thank you. In standard project development, you have a basic project brief from the client, and you start working with an architect. You prepare land analysis, and the architect prepares an initial concept design. This concept design then goes to the city architect approval. Well, it's either a city planning department or it's a city architect. They consider whether the development, the project is useful, beneficial for the city, and beneficial for the architecture, total architecture of the city. They also have to consider definitely the utility loads coming from the new building, the total loads coming from the new, like electricity loads, gas supplies, central district heating, water supply, sewage and rainwater drainage. How much loads it will be adding into the city utilities, and whether the city utilities will suffice to supply those loads. Further on, you have a approval from them, and you go on with the detailed design development, and further on you proceed with the working drawing documents. In previous, in former Soviet Union countries like Russia, or Uzbekistan is one of them, you have to prepare a special project set. It's called TEO project. It's several volumes which have to be prepared in local norms. If the project is designed by an international architect or Western architect, it has to be adopted per the local norms. Then it is presented for expertise approval. The expertise. There are two types of expertise. Either it's private or it's federal. If it's it's a government project, it has to be federal expertise, and if it's a private investment, it could be local expertise. In addition, you have to prepare a budget, which is called SMETA. It's like a BOQ in the Western world, and the budget has to be also approved from the expertise. If it's a government contract, you have to be very careful with this budget, because it comes from the federal budget, and it's going to be approved, and an allowance will be spared for this project. During international projects, I mean, if the project is international or a tender, there are various other consultants, client representatives, also architects, engineers are involved in this process, which eventually more or less delays the development and design procedures. Because every consultant wants to see the drawing, every consultant wants to have their own opinion or approval. So there are various issues, that there are various submittals, approvals, and paperwork involved in such projects. For example, an airport project in the Middle East, where there is an international architect, an international contractor. Actually, they're very experienced. The project is still ongoing for the last 6 or 7 years, and it's still ongoing. Just to give a major example, a minor example. If you can turn the video again, it will be less boring for the audience, because I'll stick to the terminology. Right, what do we do to accelerate the construction process? So we have a design build scheme, design and build, concurrent engineering, and fast track construction. What is design build, as everybody knows, is a project delivery method where a single entity is responsible for both the design and construction of a project. So the client appoints one contractor or one company who will both design, construct, and deliver the project. It's a teamwork. The design and construction teams work together from the beginning of the project. What the benefits are: it's faster project completion, increased collaboration, and there are cost-saving opportunities during the design phase. And the client can engage with the contractor and design team from the very early stages. Can we run the video again, if possible? Right. Well, this project is right next to the exhibition hall. It's the Opera Hall, and we were asked to design and build this project a few years ago because there was a high-level, ceremony, presidential ceremony. Some government officials from abroad would be visiting Tashkent, and we were asked to deliver this project, design and build this project. The total design, manufacturing, production, transportation, customs clearing, and installation took us 72 days. It's a record low. Whether you believe it or not, it's all recorded, and it's a very good example, I believe, in terms of a fast-track construction. So what is fast-track construction? Is a project delivery strategy where construction begins before the entire design is completed. So it allows for faster project completion. It involves overlapping design, permitting, and construction phases. And it speeds up the project, but it has also risks. So overlapping phases are design, permitting, and construction are done concurrently rather than sequentially. You have an early start of the project, the initiation. Construction may begin on certain parts of the project, even before the complete design is available. So you can start you don't have to wait until the design is finalized. But you have to be risk aware. There's a major risk, a higher level of risk management, because the overlapping nature of the project phases are very critical. You might make mistakes, and you might have to make changes to the project or the construction, which is already built. And there are cost considerations. While it can potentially reduce overall project time, a fast-track construction may not necessarily lead to lower costs, and sometimes can even increase them due to the need for more flexible planning and potential changes. So there might be potential changes because the design was not finalized when you started the construction. So you have to be very aware of the risks. The new technology my colleagues have been mentioning, building information modeling and AI. I will very basically refer to them because some experts have already briefly explained about them. You can involve building a management system from the conceptual design and design development stage to construction drawings, shop drawings, fabrication, and as-built modeling. And also you could add 4D beam scheduling, The schedule also is integrated into the construction documentation, where you can follow the schedule, the Gantt chart, which we still use on the construction sites, into the building information model. What does it do? It enhances collaboration and communication. It improves accuracy. It reduces errors. You could recognize potential clashes before you start constructing them. It streamlines workflows. It increases productivity. It optimizes costs and resource management. And also you can use it for facility management.
Ve bunda BIM qurilishda u boshqarilish tizimiga kiritish mumkin va bu sifat va xavfsizlikni oshirib bordi va hokazo bordi va sun'iy intellekt ham integratsiya qilyapti mana shu axborot tizimiga va yana qurilish amaliyotlar ilg'or tajribasi ham kiritilgan va bu yerda xatarlar tahlili ham kiritilib o'tishi. Rahmat sizga ko'p terminologiya bilan sizlarni zeriktirib qo'yganim uchun uzr so'rayman. Bu juda qiziqarli fikrlarni bildingiz va bu qurilish jarayonini ko'rsatdingiz va tezlik misollari va texnologiyalarni ham ishlatish mumkinligini ko'rsatdik. Yana o'ylaymanki bu oxirgi aytgan narsangiz juda qiziqar edi va biz buni rivojlantirganimizda turli texnologiyalar, turli bosqichlarda turli texnologiya bo'ladi. Loyihalashtirish, taqdim etish, qurilish paytida va turli va bu yerda ana shu butun qurilish davomida texnologiyani integratsiya qilish mumkin va bu qurilishda ishlatilgan narsalar axborot tizimida ham qo'llanishi mumkin va bu yerda albatta manfaatdor taraflar ham shunga qiziqishi kerak. Bu yerda foydalanuvchilar va keyingi foydalanuvchi, kichik foydalanuvchilar hammasi shuni bilishi kerak va bu ekspluatatsiya davomida katta samaradorlikka erishish imkoniyati beradi va shuning uchun men tashakkur bildiraman va bu yerda infratuzilmaning bir qismi bu mavjud infratuzilma va yangisi bo'lishi mumkin va bu yerda qanday qilib biz modernizatsiya qilishimiz mumkin mavjud infratuzilmani va buni yana shahar kengayib borishi bilan qanday integratsiya qilishimiz mumkinligini o'ylashimiz kerak va shaharlar qanday qilib bu nazarda tutadi. O'ylaymanki bu yerda hal qiluvchi jihat hisoblanadi. Infratuzilma haqida o'ylash kerak va bu yerda amalga oshirib bo'ladigan infratuzilma bo'lishi kerak va bu yerda masalan suv quvurlari shuni ular bu yerda bor, lekin ular hozir 50 yildan ortiq mavjud. Shuning uchun tizim qanday ahvolda ekanligi to'g'risida axborot to'plash kerak va ko'p ana shu ishni amalga oshirish uchun xizmat kontraktlarini tuzish kerak va infratuzilma yangi shaharlarga qanday qurilyapti ular bu muayyan talablarga bog'liq aktivlarga ham asoslanib qilinadi va biz hozir ko'proq shaharga asosida o'ylashdan ko'ra bu talabni ko'rib chiqish, o'sha talab asosida infratuzilmani rivojlantirishga o'tyapmiz va tashkilotlar borki O'zbekistonda ham shunday tashkilotlar paydo bo'ladi, O'zbekistonda ham shunday xizmat ko'rsatadiganlar va bunda bu xalq aholida xizmatlarga talab oshib boryapti va shuning uchun
Structured is to get in
sifatliroq xizmatlar ham talab qilindi ularga va bu yerda qanday modernizatsiya talab qilishni ham aniqlab olishimiz kerak va rivojlanayotgan mamlakatlar kontekstida birinchi navbatda bu maishiy xizmatlar qanday aktivlar bor bu yerda va qanday moliya bu yerda foydalanishi mumkinligini va shundan keyin bu tizim bo'lishi kerak, struktura bo'lishi kerak va bunda aholi o'sishini ham hisobga olish kerak va bu nafaqat yashil texnologiyalarni hisobga olish kerak, lekin moliyani ham hisobga olish mumkin va imkoniyatlar bu ancha cheklangan va bu yerda mana shu suv va isitishga qanday bo'lishiga
that is where a service-based model helps in keeping the tariffs low, and then as and when the service levels improve, the willingness and the ability to pay for the population that is being serviced increases. That is when more of the heavier capital investments come in, and then they can be sustainably managed. One of the best examples of this kind of a scenario, which might be applicable to the Uzbekistan context as well, is the water concessions that happened in Philippines quite some time. Those are very similar to what was there in Paris earlier, then Buenos Aires as well. There, they privatized the entire water delivery system for the Manila city, and the groundwork for that is quite similar to the situations that we see in Uzbekistan currently. This includes having a law in place which attracts private sector investments. We've seen that quite often on the power sector side. Having an infrastructure which is quite old, having water which is not available for delivery either due to leakages, etc. So all of these situations were there in Philippines as well. What they did was privatize the entire thing and just set up service levels which the private sector needs to meet, and then they plan the investments accordingly. So what that helped to do is, for the first 5 years, the focus was more in terms of improving or reducing the leakages, right? Now, these are typically low-hanging fruits which do not add on to the fiscal burden or the financial burden for the municipalities. Now, once these 5-year period expired, then we move on to more CaPEX-heavy investments, which are putting up new district heating plants or developing new water sources to supply water to an expanding population. And those can then be deferred to a later stage. So that's it from my side.
Great, thanks, Varun. It's a very important point because, again, the infrastructure, either in modernizing the existing infrastructure or thinking about different ways of funding, is very critical. And again, that sometimes require a lot of work. You highlighted the importance of thinking about it as a service contract, talking about enhancement of the existing while in the short term, while you are thinking about the longer term investment. I'll move to Maxime. We talked about the population in the beginning and the population of Uzbekistan being around 37.6 million. However, the distribution of this, as we know, the majority are the young population. Part of the framework which we start talking about is how the asset class and mixed-use development would respond to that, especially with the young generation. What innovative sports, entertainment asset classes today are in the plan to respond to the demographic and the population characteristics?
Спасибо, Хусан. Ваш вопрос как нельзя более
Thank
кстати.
you, Hassan, and your question is very timely. And
Как сам сказал
let
уже, да,
me to
37,5
point
миллионов,
your
60% это
attention
молодежь.
to
И
presentation, and
рост
yes,
внутреннего
more
туризма и
than
приток иностранных гостей на сегодняшний
37
день
millions, and the
54%
majority
за
are
последний год.
young people, and
2030 году мы
and
ожидаем
by
где-то 15 миллионов,
2030,
свыше
I
15 миллионов человек.
expect more than 50 million
Мне хотелось
people
бы
of
обратить
this
ваше внимание
age category. I
на
would
несколько
like to
цветов на
pinpoint your
этой
attention
диаграмме.
to several
Бирюзовый
colors
верхний,
on that
который цвет,
diagram,
это
and
рост
the
населения, да?
blue
И
in the top, it
зелененьким,
is
если вы заметите,
growth
это
of
количество парков,
population, and green,
то
it
есть
is
мест,
number
где
of
могут
parks. So it's
получать
places
досуг
where
жители
the
Узбекистана. И она,
people of
эта цифра
Uzbekistan
указывается в
can
сотнях, то есть фактически
enjoy
126
entertainment.
парков мы
Это
имеем в Узбекистане на
126
37
parks
миллионов
for
человек, более чем
more than
37 миллионов, да?
37
То есть
million
существует
of
некий
population.
спрос,
So
некая
there is
почва.
a demand. There is
Молодежь, то есть нами было проведено исследование,
opportunity,
молодежь,
and
естественно,
young
ищет
people
активный социальный
they
досуг,
did study, and
семейные,
young
то есть
seek
потребители
for
ищут развлекательные
entertainment,
комплексы,
and
безопасные зоны
families
для детей.
of
Пожилые
course
люди
they
интересуются культурным,
want
спокойным видами
safe
отдыха.
spaces for children,
Но
and
есть определенные
older
трудности или определенные
people
проблемы,
also
которые мы
look for
выявили.
some
Это в
places
первую
for
очередь ограниченная доступность для разных возрастных групп.
leisure.
То есть
And
если определенная
there must be
возрастная группа
accessibility
идет в одно
of
место, другой возраст идет в
entertainment
другое. То есть очень мало
spaces
мест,
for
где
different
все возрастные,
categories,
так скажем,
groups of
группы могут
age, and
соединиться и
not
получить какое-то
a
развлечение.
lot of
Также
places where
недостаточно наличия мультимедийных
many
интерактивных технологий. То есть
categories,
все равно
each
мы
categories
идем
can
вперед,
entertain
цифровизация
themselves
везде,
freely
необходимо это учитывать.
jointly, and
Высокий
we need
спрос
to
в
take
Ташкенте,
that into
Самарканде, Фергане,
consideration.
Андижане.
And the
То есть
demand is high in
70%
Tashkent, Samarkand,
на
Andijan, and
2023
Fergana.
год
And
70% родителей
in
говорили о нехватке
2023,
качественного досуга для семьи.
70% of
В связи с этим,
parents
естественно,
said that
необходимо
shortage of
создавать
leisure
новые форматы или новые
spaces, and
объекты
we need
досуговые.
to create
К таким
new
относятся в первую очередь это
formats
тематические
of
парки и
leisure. First, it
аттракционы.
is
То
thematic
есть
parks and
мы видим
attractions,
на собственном
and
опыте,
we
мы
see
видим
on our
популярность таких объектов. То есть когда
experience
стоит,
that
извините за
such
сравнение, не просто карусель, а
and it was
стилизованная
not only
карусель, она вызывает
carousel
больше
but
желания
styled, and it
ее
evokes
испробовать.
more
Также интерактивные
desire
культурные
to
пространства, то
try
есть
that,
VR,
and also
дополненная
interactive
реальность, образовательные
space, if
программы,
it
когда
is
ты просто, не
virtual
просто
reality,
идешь в
virtual
экскурсию,
reality, and
например, есть
let's
парк
say
Навруз,
tours, and there
в
is a
котором
Navruz
можно
park, and
погрузиться в
that park
историю
you
Узбекистана, увидеть
can
какие-то места, которые были там 2, 3,
dive
4
into
века назад.
history of
То есть
Uzbekistan and see
вот
what
это все сопровождается с
that
интерактивными
places looked like
какими-то образовательными
3 or
программами.
4 centuries
Также
ago, and
существует
some
необходимо
educational
и
programs
существует
can be
высокий
launched,
спрос на
and there is
спортивно-активные зоны,
high
то есть
demand
где
for
можно, я не знаю, покататься на скейте,
sport
велодорожки у нас
places
в городе, да,
for
сейчас их
skating,
много,
for
но,
instance,
например,
and there
пляжные
is a
зоны, то
lot
есть
cities, but
точка
say
притяжения в Средней Азии
beaches,
вода
and
это просто,
in
можно
the
сказать,
Central Asia,
аттракцион без
water it
затрат,
is
потому что если
like
есть что-то
a
водное,
top
там будут
attraction.
люди,
That,
это по-любому.
there, if
Поэтому создание
some
таких зон,
water
это, конечно,
area
must
is
have.
there, that people will
Прогноз на
visit that,
3-5
and
лет, значит, ожидается
forecast
спрос
is
в первую очередь на
that
парки
first of all
аттракционов, и мы видим
demand will go
новые
for
парки, которые
attraction
открываются в
parks, and we
республике,
see
они как бы
new
пользуются
parks
огромным
in the
спросом.
Republic, and
Развлекательные
then
комплексы,
high
естественно,
demand, and
спортивные объекты
entertainment
для активного
complexes,
отдыха,
and
имеется в виду
sport
современные. У
complexes
нас
for
достаточно
active
спортивных объектов, но модернизированные, обустроены по последнему слову техники, так сказать, не так
we
много,
need
как
to
хотелось бы.
modernize and
Также
equipped
культурные
with
мероприятия и фестивали, они всегда
up-to-date
пользуются
equipment.
спросом.
And
Немного я
culture
буквально
not
кратко
always in demand. It is
пройду о том,
not
что уже есть. Вот,
briefly
например, вы видите
about
Magic
what
City, где
is
воссоздана
available.
старая
And,
Европа,
for
то есть если
instance,
кто-то из вас не был, можете посетить. Также у нас есть горнолыжный курорт Амирсой, то есть он уже соответствует современным мировым стандартам. Это полноценный горнолыжный курорт.
today
даже
that
является,
is
по-моему, побратимом сочинского
resort of
Также
world
есть Silk Road
class,
Самарканд,
like
это флагман,
Sochi
можно сказать,
and
туристических инвестиций в
support
Узбекистане на сегодняшний день.
Samarkand, and we have
Анкор парк,
touristic
который
Angkor
оснащен и
park that is
стремится
equipped
создать именно
and they
тематическую
try
среду.
to
Если вы посетите этот
create
парк,
a
вы увидите, что
thematic
там каждый аттракцион
environment,
имеет свою
and
стилистику.
if
Да,
you
пока
visit,
это
we will
нету
see each
единого
attraction will
концепта,
have
но
its
управляющий
stylistic
парка старается именно
peculiarity. It is
воссоздать
not a
требования современности.
unique
Также
concept
Навруз
of the
парк,
whole
который я
park, but
упоминал,
also
видите,
Navruz
верхние две
Park, I
фотографии,
mentioned that,
там воссоздана
and
архитектура именно
photo you
Узбекистана
can
в
see
разные периоды и
the
в разных
architecture of
регионах.
Uzbekistan
Например, там
and
есть
different
Самаркандская
periods
улица,
and
или там, я
different
не
regions.
знаю,
And there's
Бухарская улица,
Samarkand,
где
street of Bukhara,
воссоздана
Samarkand,
идентика вот
and
этих всех
identical
условий. И
the,
Акваленд в Самарканде, то есть это уже современный аквапарк. Я говорю, что вода в Средней Азии уже является сама по себе магнитом, да, то есть точкой притяжения для людей. Если мы поговорим, даже если кратко я просто затрону мировых лидеров, таких как Дисней, Европа парк или Порт-Авентура, то там присутствуют уже современные технологии. И наша стратегия нашей управляющей компании именно как раз во внедрении вот этого передового цифрового опыта. Также обязательно совмещение с современными нормами в области зеленой энергетики, например. Да, то есть или переработки отходов. Вот, к примеру, мы успешно внедряем сейчас в одном из наших объектов, мы внедряем систему контроля энергопотребления, которая на сегодняшний день дает от 15 до 20% экономии электроэнергии. Только за счет цифровизации. То есть мы не стали как бы потреблять меньше, но за счет вот грамотного учета и автоматизации мы имеем вот такую экономию. А это углеродный след, то есть понижение углеродного следа. Наши проекты, они касаются не только парков развлечений, но так как мы выросли из парков, как бы у нас есть опыт управления, успешного управления парками, поэтому в первую очередь наши проекты направлены на развитие именно этих досуговых пространств, которые так необходимы современной молодежи, да? То есть тематические парки нового поколения, совмещенные с контактными зоопарками, где будут семейные пространства, зоны релаксации, а также особенный такой аутентичный местный рынок, ну и, естественно, как без гастрозон. Экономический эффект, я думаю, очевиден, это поддержка малого и среднего предпринимательства, турпоток, городская привлекательность. Мы убедились на своем опыте, что если мы будем диверсифицировать прибыль, то есть доход наш будет акцент делать не только на продажу билетов, но также на аренду, на предоставление площадок для ивентов, на франчайзинговую историю. То есть мы пробуем, дальше вы увидите, мы пробуем уже имплементировать франчайз, то есть давать уже готовые модели, по которым могут работать другие, например, развлекательные комплексы. Досуговый кластер, то есть одним словом это досуговый кластер, где человек может и обучаться, и развлекаться, и проводить время, и отдыхать в тишине. Да, есть некие проблемы, конечно же, с инфраструктурой, там, с электроснабжением, но мы опять-таки подчеркиваем переход на солнечную энергию,
to the solar generation, and it works, and it is not just an attempt to do, it is working technology, and we do that. That market of entertainment, it is not occupied, and it is available for investment, and it gives return, fast and good return. And we should compare not with world benchmarks. If they tell about 5% of return, profit, and we forecast for 5 to 7. And at the last slide, we have some projects, and some of them are modernized, and some is launched, and others are on the layer of concepts. And in total, I think I managed to briefly to describe that.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Maxime. I have just a quick follow-up question, if you don't mind. So, first of all, it's a very innovative approach to entertainment theme parks. We saw a variation of experiences. The point which you closed at, because as urban developers approaching entertainment, there's always the question of profitability. You quickly highlighted that in your theme parks you have multi-layers of revenues generation, because sometimes you are renting the place for events, you have ticketing, you have how do you find the revenue schemes in all of these theme parks, because again the investment in theme parks, historically at least, investors are not very much encouraged. They are worried about being static and running out of fashion. The integration of innovation and technology you explained would guarantee that your theme park will always be refreshed, and but more importantly, you have multi-layered of revenue. Can you briefly tell us about these revenue streams and how you are maintaining this innovative approach to the theme park to be refreshed? In a brief, if you don't mind.
Спасибо за вопрос.
Thank you for
Ну,
the
давайте
questions.
я буду говорить о том, что я сам, что мы делаем, да, и что я сам своими глазами, так сказать, вижу каждый день. В первую очередь, потребность в инновациях, то есть инновации всегда воспринимаются лучше. Если ты внедряешь не стандартную качельку, да, которая просто качается, а если она оформлена в хай-тек стиле, если там есть какой-то датчик, который дает возможность интерактивного участия, то всегда привлечение к такому аттракциону идет выше. То есть интерактив и, ну скажем так, небольшой пиар уже дает возможность тому, чтобы люди привлекались. Помимо этого, я хотел бы подчеркнуть, что парк не является местом только, где можно покататься на аттракционах. Это город, который включает в себя безопасность, комфорт, энергию. То есть это рабочие места. Это в первую очередь, ну я не знаю, это среда, которая живет и развивается в соответствии с современными требованиями современности. Да? Доход здесь приходит, ну, честно скажу, практически отовсюду. То есть есть не только, как я уже говорил, аренда, например, да, или, я не знаю, здесь можно за счет того, что ты этот опыт передаешь новым поколениям, ты передаешь этот опыт другим своим коллегам или партнерам, они на этом, благодаря тому, что они это внедряют, они уже могут зарабатывать выгоду больше, чем другие, потому что, опять подчеркну, количество досуговых центров недостаточно. Если ты сделаешь минимальную рекламу, народ приходит просто огромное количество. То есть здесь билеты, продажи билетов, здесь аренда, здесь проведение ивентов, потому что площадку можно предоставить для проведения какого-то массового мероприятия. Этот опыт у нас тоже есть. То есть тут я боюсь даже не сказать, откуда можно заработать. Да? То есть зарабатывать, в принципе, можно отовсюду.
Thank you very much for the answer. Just to add to your answer also, we know that real estate developments with entertainment, usually you have indirect value because it elevates the value of the entire surrounding when you have the entertainment. Today in our discussion we tried to develop approach to more sustainable, livable and energy efficient new development, either by reinventing the urban development framework and utilizing technology and guidelines to ensure the consistency and the short-term delivery or the long-term longevity of of the development into green, smart, and multi-modal mobility systems with the innovation at the core. Also utilizing AI to create participatory framework in the design and also in engaging the community all the way to utilizing this technology to create fast-track projects that can beat the conventional approach. Also thinking about the infrastructure and modernization of the existing one while you are working on innovative approach to the new one, all the way to ensuring that the large-scale mixed-use development asset distribution respond to the population demographic characteristics. One of it is the young population and the new innovative way of thinking of entertainment. I would like to thank our speakers today, Haken Aga from Crosswork, Sasha Barnix from Alstom, Manuel Gato from the Hadid Architects, Izzat Gomez from Koch Construction, Varun Dave from Synergy Consulting, Maxime Popov from Anhor Evolution, and from me, Hussam Rao from Boston Consulting Group. I would like to thank you all for attending this session, and I wish you a pleasant rest of the day. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we run out of time, and the new panels is waiting outside. However, the speakers and myself will be around to take any questions. Thank you very much.